Welcome to Sixth Row Center, your best seat in the house for movie chat. I'm Heath, and that is JD. Hello, JD.
Hey, everybody.
And over there is Rob. Hello, Rob.
Good day to all.
Today, we're going to have major spoilers as we discuss scene by scene the 1987 crime comedy movie Raising Arizona. Directed by Joel Coen and written by Joel and his brother Ethan, who have made a string of some of the greatest films ever, including Barton Fink, Fargo, The Big Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, No Country for Old Men, and in my personal top 10 of all time, Miller's Crossing. Raising Arizona is about a hapless, reformed criminal named Hi and his police officer wife, Ed, who perpetrate the crime of stealing Nathan Arizona Jr., one of wealthy furniture store owner Nathan Arizona's quintuplet sons, because Ed is barren. The movie stars Nicolas Cage as Hi, Holly Hunter as Ed, as well as John Goodman, William Forsythe, Trey Wilson, Frances McDormand, and Randal Tex Cobb. It was shot in a 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio, which is kind of like before they went to the anamorphic 2.40. It's like a compressed full widescreen that's more like a 4:3 aspect ratio, so they could just kind of chop off the sides and put it right on TV, which was, I don't know, kind of interesting. But Raising Arizona looks mostly like a widescreen film. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 34 minutes and was produced on a $5.5 million budget while grossing $29.2 million at the box office, making it a financial success. At the time of its release, critics were not terribly kind, though as the years have passed, it has enjoyed much more favor. I don't remember when the first time was that I saw Raising Arizona. It was on cable for sure, so it was late 87. I've seen it many, many times since that first time. Do you guys remember your first time seeing Raising Arizona? If so, tell us about it. And also tell us briefly what you thought of it and give it a 1 to 10 rating for story, acting, and directing. Why don't you start, Rob?
I remember going to see it at the theater very, very clearly. Yes, I went to see it with our friend Josh, who wrote Bone Lake, and friends. I remember leaving the theater and I couldn't feel my face. I was laughing so much. So was he. He couldn't stop. He couldn't breathe. So yeah, I have a really clear memory of it. We saw it with a couple of other friends too, and they were not as impressed as we were. I think I went to see it with my friend Eric and some of his friends.
Eric Kajewski?
That's my buddy. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Eric if he ever listens to this. Yeah, we went to see it together. And yeah, but Josh and I couldn't stop talking about it. And he was, he was already a film buff at the time. For me, I mean, the movie is a 7.5 all around for every, all the way through directing, writing, acting. Just seeing it recently with my son, it was fun to watch it with him. It's aged pretty well. It's still, it has some of its a little bit here and there, which I was like going, I've seen it so many times. I guess maybe it's lost some of its funny, but my son really liked it, and he did have an opinion. Which I didn't. I guess because we're from the '80s and didn't occur to me. But he says there are no real good people in this movie. Everyone is up to doing something bad, and I said, well, you got to look at the growth factor, right? Right. They do grow in the end, and so we talked about that a little bit. Yeah, that was my experience with seeing it for the first time and rewatching it recently. What about you, JD?
Like Heath, I don't really remember the first time. I do remember watching it many times on cable, and I just recently rewatched it too. I love pretty much everything the Coen Brothers have done, and this is definitely no exception. I give this straight 9s. Clever story, amazingly acted, and very well directed. So I give it straight 9s. Obviously, that means I love it. I don't really have any problems with this movie. Yes, and I would love to have Cameron on the show sometime because it's really cool that you're rewatching these movies with him, and I'd like to get his perspective. I do the same thing with Lily, although not on this case because I was traveling. But even though I would say the overall writing is great and the directing is great, their strength, the Coen Brothers, I think, is their dialogue. It's so engaging, so clever, is witty, and also a nice, concise story. Doesn't drag it out. You get a complete story in, 1 hour and a half or so. I absolutely love it. Love Raising Arizona. I don't know. I've seen it at least 10 times. And what about you, Heath?
I agree with both of you guys. It is just an incredibly funny movie. I think it's really interesting what, Rob, you said about your son saying that there are no good characters in there. I think when we were younger, maybe we didn't have the same ideas about people and what constitutes a good person or a bad person. Good people can do bad things. I really feel the duality of man is a much stronger concept for us when we were younger, and it has really faded out as the generations have gone on. But that's neither here nor there. Incredibly funny film. I remember loving it the very first time I ever saw it, and now I don't even know, 20 times I've seen it, whatever. I still love it, which is a testament in itself that the movie can be watched over and over and still enjoyed. It's a pretty simplistic story about a kidnapping, and I rated the overall story an 8 because there was so many extra things in it that fleshed it out. It felt a lot bigger, a lot grander than it was. JD hit the nail on the head. It was so well written. The dialogue is so amazing. I think the Coen brothers are, you think of directors who are known for their dialogue. I think Quentin Tarantino's like the first one that comes up, but man, the Coen brothers know how to write great dialogue, and the characters are really fully developed. There's the main plot point with Hi and Ed, but then there's these kind of side plots with Glenn and Dot and Gail and Ethel. Not to mention there's this demonic bounty hunter, and they all combine to make this story really come alive. All the performances were top notch. I gave all the acting an 8. I always wonder with performances like this what was on the page and what the actors brought, because the characters are so quirky, they're so unusual. I've read the Coen brothers specifically write their scripts, and they tell their actors, do not ad-lib, you do exactly what's on the page, which I've read that Nicolas Cage had a problem with that because he's the type of person who likes to flesh out his characters and be a little bigger than, so they kind of butt heads on this one. Anyway, I gave the directing an 8 as well. I don't think Joel Coen had really found his stride yet as a director. This was only his second film, but there's just so much flash here. There's so much style, and I loved it. Overall, I gave Raising Arizona an 8.03, which places it inside my top 120 all time. It is for me, one of the greatest comedies ever, and I hope I can explain exactly why I think so, and you guys can explain exactly why you feel the way you do as we go through our scene by scene. So if no one has anything to add, let us begin.
Quick question, because
Please.
I don't know the filmography. What was their first? Was it Miller's Crossing?
No. Their first one was Blood Simple.
Oh, right. Okay.
All right, then. Raising Arizona starts with a voiceover by H.I. McDonough, or Hi. He's played by Nicolas Cage. A lot of this is his voiceovers. And again, we've already mentioned the dialogue. All of his dialogue is great. Everybody's dialogue is great. And there's going to be plenty of lines that we're going to be talking about. So Hi, Nick Cage, has just been booked for robbery. And he explains that this is the first time that he's met Ed, who is taking his mugshot. Ed is short for Edwina. This is Holly Hunter, who I must confess I've always had a huge crush on. She's just so adorable, and that Georgia accent is just wow. Well, it turns out I'm not the only one smitten, as Hi tries to chat her up, but she will have absolutely nothing to do with him. Meanwhile, Hi continues explaining about life in prison and the camaraderie between the men there, as well as his group counseling sessions. And finally, after a while, Hi is in front of the parole board, where they ask him 2 questions. Have you learned anything, Hi? And his answer is, yes, sir, you bet. And the second one being, you wouldn't lie to us, would you? And his response is, no, ma'am, hope to say. And that's it. He's paroled. He is out back on the streets. And once out, Hi laments on the economy under Reagan as he robs another convenience store and finds himself right back in front of Ed's camera. Only this time, she's sobbing as she's taking his photo because her fiance, as she calls it, ran off with another woman. And I wrote in here that how much I love the language. We've already talked about it a few times. The dialogue in all of their movies, they've got such style. And a lot of it is adding these offbeat details to the things that the characters say. Like right here, Hayes explains that Ed's fiancée had run off with a student cosmetologist who knew how to apply her feminine wiles. And just the way that Ed pronounces it, fines instead of fiance. Again, I wonder how much of this was written and how much of it was the actors, but I'm pretty sure it was all written on the page. Except, when you see fiance on the page, how do you know to pronounce it incorrectly? Unless, yeah, I don't know if Holly Hunter came up with that or if they told her to say it like that.
Almost
Great,
100% written on the page that way.
probably.
It is, everything's very, character, it is stylized. So, and it fits. And
It's Coen-esque.
yeah.
Yes,
By the
not
way,
Colin-esque, but Cohen-esque.
not Coen. That's a different movie altogether.
Oh, yes.
Uh,
High's response to this is being totally insulted for Ed, calling her fiance a damn fool, challenging him, and this strikes a chord in Ed as High is ushered back to prison. Once there, the counselor berates High for not having begun a family. But inmate brothers Gail and Evel Snotes, John Goodman and William Forsythe, defend High, saying, sometimes your career's got to come before a family. And Evel says, that's what's always made us happy. So 20 months pass, and High is again before the parole board. And they tell him he's only hurting himself with his rambunctious behavior, and he agrees with them, and once again he's released. And what does he do? He robs the same store yet again. But this time, he accidentally locked himself out of his car, so he's got to run off. And once again, he is back before Ed's camera, only this time, as she is fingerprinting him, he proposes, putting a ring on her finger and telling her not to worry because it's paid for. She accepts, and he goes right back to prison. Now, after however long he's in prison again, he's before the parole board for a third time, but this time the boardsmen are not as nice, and they call him a repeat offender, and they ask if he's changed, and he says he has. And then one asks, you're not just telling us what we want to hear, and he says, no. And another says, because what we really want to hear is the truth. And so High's like, well, then I guess I am telling you what you want to hear. And the first guy says, well, didn't we tell you not to do that? It's just all verbal jokes. I'm probably not telling them well so that they sound funny, but in the movie, it's just hilarious. And all the characters it's all Southern accents, even though it's taking place in Arizona. I don't know if they really speak with Southern accents all in Arizona, but I guess it's close to like Texas or whatever. So High gets out, and he and Ed get married. And I thought the wedding was kind of funny because the entire bride side of the aisle is all blue uniformed cops, and the groom side of the aisle are all Hawaiian shirts. They move in together into a trailer out in the middle of the Arizona desert outside of Tempe. High gets a job drilling holes in sheet metal. Emmett Walsh is his co-worker, and he never shuts up, talking about his friend's Bill, and you never can tell if it's Bill Parker or Bill somebody else.
that actor's been in a bunch of their movies, by the way.
Emmett Walsh, yes.
Yes, he was in. I think he was in the.
He was
first
in Blood
one.
Simple. He was in their first
Simple.
movie.
Right. So he was, and they do flesh out each and every single character in this movie, even if they get 30 seconds of screen time or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
They get fleshed out, which I love about this movie and Coen Brothers in general. Yeah.
Every character is very quirky. He's very memorable, he or she. High explains that these were some of his happiest days with Ed, who decides that their next step should be to have a child because, in her words, there's too much love and beauty in the world for just the two of them, and every day they keep a child out of the world is a day the child would regret missing, which I think is also interesting. The Coen brothers create entire philosophies for their characters. She has a philosophy. High definitely has a philosophy. You hear it as he narrates the story. The two brothers, the Snote brothers, they definitely have their own philosophy. Nathan Arizona has his own philosophy, and so does the bounty hunter, as you will come to find. Like Rob just said, the characters are very fleshed out for not necessarily being main characters, some of them. Well, the happy days end when Ed discovers that she can't have children. She's inconsolable, and adoption is not an option due to High's history of crime. Ed becomes depressed, almost catatonic, and eventually quits her job. High finds himself thinking of going back to robbing stores until one day they see on TV about the Nathan, Arizona family who just had quintuplet boys, and they formulate a plan to take one of them. And that ends the prologue. The title card comes up, Raising Arizona. The music that you mentioned comes on. The great yodeling with the banjo by the awesome Carter Burwell, who did the score. Who has done a bunch of Coen Brothers scores?
Watching it in the theater for the first time and never seen anything like it. I was like almost in shock going, this is going to be a ride. You know, I needed Visine because I don't think I closed my eyes the whole time that I was watching this movie. Besides, you know, not being able to breathe from all laughter. Great start, great beginning. One of the best all-time intros of all, you know, of any movie.
And a long intro too.
I love it. And I just want to point out here that because they flesh out the characters, and especially because of Holly Hunter's character, they're not quite mocking, right? Like there's just enough humanity in these characters to where they're not mocking the Southern fool. Because pretty much everybody in this movie is a fool. But Holly Hunter is grounded and, you know, she has a moral compass and all of that.
And yet she's the one who wants to steal a baby.
Yeah, well, because she's inconsolable and she loses her mind, and I don't want to jump ahead, but eventually regrets that decision. It could have so have easily been just mocking and not hit as hard, right? It's still been clever and great dialogue, but they bring humanity to the characters at the same time.
I agree, and that's one of the things I was talking to my son, going, "Yeah, they're built out intelligently, even though they're playing the fools." So I don't ever feel like they're idiots. I just think that they're maybe going in the wrong direction sometimes, you know, and how are you going to develop into a better character at the end? And I'm just talking about the main characters, obviously.
We talk a lot about subverting expectations. They just thread the needle so delicately that you're left after that intro going, what is this? You know?
Exactly. I after you watch some of these things, there's no expectations because you're like, what? You have no idea what might happen next. And I think that's
Right.
the genius of it. That's the genius.
And you really don't have any idea based on what comes after. You could not have predicted anything.
So High climbs up a ladder into an upstairs window in the Nathan, Arizona home, into the baby's room. The babies start crying, and one by one, he picks them up to console them. Nick Cage, High, is doing this. And as he consoles each one, he puts the baby down on the floor, or he puts another baby down on a chair, and so next thing you know, there's just babies crawling all over the place. What was that cartoon with Baby Herman? And he's like always crawling around and he's about to like fall off of things, and Roger Rabbit has to like constantly. This was basically the same thing, only, well, way before that, only with 5 babies. I didn't think this was the greatest scene in the world. I didn't find the humor in this particular part, but I loved the directing. I loved the camera angles. I loved the way they followed the babies as they walked on the ground, or you would see the parents were downstairs and they would look up at the ceiling, and just different things to make it more enjoyable about a joke, the joke being the babies running all over the place, that I didn't find that terribly funny.
Yeah, and they managed to make a kidnapping fun.
Yes.
Lighthearted. I remember laughing in the theater. The camera angles of the babies looking up and then him looking down.
Exactly.
With a fisheye lenses.
I will say that I agree with you, Heath, and probably the only reason I don't give this film a perfect 10 is this scene just dragged out a little too long.
I think so too.
It was it just, they kept repeating the same kind of joke again and again. The one thing that I think saved it is it fleshed out the parents a little bit. Like neither one of them could be bothered, right? She reluctantly goes to check on them eventually, which was a little telling about them.
And exactly as you say, she eventually goes upstairs. Just as she does, Nick Cage is able to get the babies back in the crib. I love the fact that they had this huge crib that all 5 babies sat in. It had all their names were written on the back of the crib. So High returns to the car, only he's without a baby, and Ed has a hissy fit and demands that he not come back to the car without a baby. So he has to go back up the ladder, and this time he is successful. He swipes Nathan Jr., and they return home incredibly happy. But I think it's kind of funny. Obviously, they're quintuplets. They all look exactly alike. Nobody's exactly sure. Even the parents aren't exactly sure which baby they got, but it's pretty much figured that it probably is Nathan Jr.
But I think
And I
that's a
love that.
joke in and of itself because
Oh yeah,
nobody knows, and everybody makes the same assumption for really no apparent reason. There's no reason to decide that it's Nathan Jr. other than that's kind of like the first default. Like I did find some humor in the fact that they all saw it the same way, which was for no reason.
And calling back to the babies being in the same crib and the whole scene, right? It reminded me of a Looney Tunes cartoon. You know,
absolutely. I was just
right?
saying.
Exactly. I think you said that earlier. And that's what you would see back in the day when we watched those cartoons. If there were more than one baby, they were in the same crib, lined up, and the whole scene, the camera angles, the whole thing. Yeah. So
Yeah, now that you mention that, and I had said it was just like a Baby Herman type thing, but when you specifically say that, Rob, a lot of this movie was like a big Looney Tunes movie. It sort of was the whole thing,
right.
It
as we
does
will see
even have
later
that
as the things
feel.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 We'll see later the one of the a cartoon character does show up.
yeah. And even their
totally.
attitudes are cartoonish. Like the characters are cartoonish. Some of them are way more adult than Looney Tunes, but yeah, no, I think you're right.
But I also really liked how not only does Nick Cage take the baby, but he also takes the Dr. Spock baby book. And when he puts the baby in the car, he hands the book over and says, "This is his instructions," which I love that line. And so much of the comedy derives from the quirkiness of the characters and, for the millionth time, the dialogue, as opposed to situations. And I mean, the situations are funny, yet it's usually the dialogue and these characters that make you laugh. The balance kind of changes. I think it gets even more situational later. We see that Gale and Evil have tunneled out of prison. John Goodman is Gale, and he comes out screaming as loud as he can through this mud hole in the rain right in front of the prison. You wouldn't think he would be screaming as loud as he can right in front of a prison. And after he gets out, still screaming, he never stops screaming, he reaches down into the mud hole and grabs his brother by the ankle and picks him up upside down. And as soon as the brother comes out, he's screaming too, and they're screaming as they get out of the prison. Just funny. I mean, just you think of a prison escape, this is not how you picture it.
Not at all the way you would expect an escape, and I totally took it as overtly symbolic of a rebirth. Like they pop, there's no hole, they pop up through the mud, and then he births his brother Breach.
Breach. That's what I
Breach,
say. Yeah,
yes.
breach.
And of
Difficult.
course,
Yeah.
they are again subverting expectations because even though they've been reborn, they do not change.
No. I read that John Goodman met the Coen brothers and he was saying how he only wants to take parts at this time. He only would take parts where he would be able to scream or cry or show incredibly great emotion. And the Coen brothers said, "Yeah, you can be in our movies." And he's been in a string of Coen brothers movies since then.
In the rewatching, just as soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh my God, that's right, John Goodman. And like he's a whole different actor in the Coen brother movies. He's so good.
The first thing that Gale and Evil do is they fix their hair. They steal some pomade and they find a mirror and they fix their hair. And then they steal a station wagon and head for High's trailer. Now, High is really happy to see his friends from prison, but Ed is not pleased at having more criminals around her son. As I mentioned, Gale is John Goodman, and he immediately sees something fishy about the baby, but he can't necessarily put his finger on it. However, Ed puts her foot down, telling the brothers they have to leave, and it kind of makes High look a little pussy-whipped in front of his friends. She goes to sleep with the baby, and High stays out there and lets the brothers stay with them a few days, even though Ed had said not to.
And his face, just I love the shame
Yes,
in his
yes.
face. It's you mentioned the palm for the hair, right? The
The
comb.
pomade.
I think they have a thing for having guys in slick hairs because what was it? Oh, brother,
Oh, brother, where art thou?
they go specifically to a store to get what? To get,
Absolutely.
Dapper Dan or whatever it is.
Dapper Dan. I'm a Dapper Dan man. I don't use pomade. I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Top shelf. Right. So, yep.
It's another great. I mean, so many great Coen Brothers movies.
Yep.
And so relatable with the buddies and basically mocking him for being whipped, and that reminded me of us. Like
Yes.
it was such an authentic moment.
That night, High has a dream. He dreams of a lone biker of the apocalypse whose wheels leave a trail of fire. He kills everything in his path, and this biker is out to hunt them down. And there's great camera work. Well, first you see the biker coming at you, but then eventually the camera is the point of view of the bike as it's driving around, and eventually it drives right into the Arizona home, and you see Mrs. Arizona discovering her baby is gone and screaming. So the next day, the press is all over the disappearance of the baby. Nathan is talking to the police, Nathan Sr., who is Trey Wilson, a really great character actor he was pretty popular in the late 70s and through the 80s. He died very shortly after this movie was made, brain hemorrhage, and just dropped dead.
Oh,
Yeah. Really great character actor. And I read that he was actually tabbed to play the Albert Finney role in Miller's Crossing, which I couldn't even imagine, but the Coen brothers wanted him, so probably, although Albert Finney was phenomenal.
but this guy, this character was, and in this scene in particular, was exceptional. Not to jump ahead, you probably have this, but he gives such a great line here when the police are.
Which one?
Exactly what they're asking.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, but they're asking him something about his house. Like they're basically questioning the parents because, of course, they gotta question the parents. They say, "Can we look in the basement or something or whatever?" And he's like, "You're spending all your time at the one house in all of Arizona that I know he's not."
Right.
He's immediately angry at the bumbling police.
The dialogue is hilarious. He delivered it so smooth. What are we looking for? What was he wearing? He goes, I don't know.
That's the line I like.
Yeah, that's a hilarious line. Go ahead.
I don't know, Yodas and shit.
The microbes. They got microbes everywhere. Looking for microbes. Right. I like that line. Both of those lines, JD and Yoda one too. Like it said, you said it a few months or 6 months later, I was talking to Josh and he goes, that actor from Raising Arizona? He just ended up dead. So he's the one that told me about it when it happened.
Yeah, he was in a bunch of movies. He was a pretty big character actor for a while. And he was young. I think he was 40 or something when he died.
I remember him being a pretty popular character actor, and he just disappeared. Well, you explained why, sadly.
So you're bringing me down, man.
It's a bummer, man. It's a bummer. So at the same time as the Arizonas are talking to the FBI and the police, the state police are searching that exit hole where the Snout brothers escaped from, and the biker of the apocalypse rides up. And we find out that this is a bounty hunter named Leonard Smalls, played by Randal Tex Cobb. And being way better than the cops, he immediately discovers the gas station where the brothers had fixed their hair and stolen the station wagon. He can literally sniff the clues out. You see him sniffing around and going exactly where he needs to go. Gail and Evel eat cereal at High's, and just the way that they're eating the cereal is funny. I don't know if you remember, but both of them, it's just so funny. I mean, John Goodman is a naturally gifted, funny guy, and so is William Forsythe.
I totally agree with you. Like, just the way they're eating the cereal, it's somehow obnoxious and funny and like unnecessary. They're like oblivious. They have no couth whatsoever.
Yeah, just like, shoveling it in.
They're unwanted in the house, and yet they're sitting here acting like buffoons.
So High tells the brothers to make themselves scarce because Ed's friend Glenn and Dot are coming over with their 5 insanely unruly children. Glenn is High's foreman at work. This is Sam McMurray, who tells racist jokes. And Dot is Frances McDormand. Frances McDormand, of course, Joel Coen's wife. He puts her in quite a few of his movies. In fact, this is his second movie, and she was in both the first 2 movies. And she asks a ton of questions about the baby, making High and Ed realize that they have a lot more responsibility than they had previously realized. And this leads to High lamenting to Glenn about kind of feeling trapped and feeling a lot of pressure. But Glenn's completely unexpected reaction is to offer a wife swap, which gets him a punch in the nose from High.
It's hilarious, hilarious. I mean, I remember laughing my ass off in the theater, but even
Yes.
now, I watched it with my son, when he punches him, Cameron goes, "Oh my God, he's so far away from him," because you see how far away Nicolas Cage is from his foreman that he just punched, and it's like it steps away. He has to step over a cactus and a bunch of stuff. He must have flown through the air, and that made it even funnier that he had to step over a few things to get back to him where he ended up.
You mentioned subverting expectation, JD, earlier. That part I just did not see coming.
I did not see that part coming, but also I want to call out what really had me laughing is when Ed is immediately like listening to her hairdresser friend or whatever tell her all the things she needs to have for the baby, and she's immediately just like, "Hi, do you hear that? Do we have insurance, life insurance for the baby?" Like she's the responsible one, and she's putting everything on him, and she's completely taking as gospel everything this woman tells her.
Well, she does have 5 kids, so she should know,
Yeah,
I guess.
no. I mean, it just to me it was hysterical, and both the piling up on High, and she took no responsibility for any of this stuff, and the fact that she was taking this. Yes, she has 5 kids, but she's also an idiot, you know.
Yes, she was definitely an idiot.
But she took it. You can see Holly Hunter does such a great job. I absolutely love. I give her a 10 throughout the whole movie because she's like panicking. Do we have insurance? You know, like it's everything to her.
I always give Holly Hunter a 10. So the family is out driving that night after Glenn and Dot leave. Ed and Nathan Jr. wait in the car as High goes into the store to get some diapers, but he ends up robbing the store. Ed sees this through the window and she just drives off, leading to what might be the most iconic scene of the movie. High is running through the town as well as through the aisles of the grocery store with a stocking on his head, being shot at by police and chased by Dobermans and other stray dogs to the strains of the banjo and the yodeling soundtrack score. In fact, anytime the first thing I think of when I think of Raising Arizona is him with the stocking on his head running, and you can see the aisles of the grocery store going by.
Yeah, he's got the Huggies on
The
their
Huggies.
Huggies on their arm, and we get to the scene where later gets in the car with the old man.
It's exactly where I'm going right now.
I
The
always remembered that as being the cashier, but it wasn't. Who delivered the iconic line? For some reason,
Right
I had
now,
it in
the
my head.
cashier pulls out a shotgun and shoots at him.
Yeah.
I think it's a
He gets
357.
out of the store. He's running down the street and he stops a truck, and the guy looks at him and says, "Son, you got a panty on your head."
Do you know you got a penny on you? Oh my God. Everything, I mean, it is iconic. You set it up, but everything about that whole sequence is absolutely hysterical, including the fact that he's stealing diapers and
Yes.
Huggies, and people immediately, with exuberance, they start shooting at him like they've been waiting for this moment.
Everybody has a shotgun too. The cashier pulls out a shotgun. The butcher pulls out a shotgun. The police are all the first thing the police do is they start firing at him from the car
In a grocery store.
in the grocery store. Yes.
You
The
know,
camera work again is great following this wonderful chase scene. It's quirky camera work. It's cool angles and it's just so enjoyable to watch. When he gets into the car with the hillbilly just constantly screaming. I love the screaming hillbilly who's driving around. Eventually, Ed has a change of heart and she goes back to pick up High, and they do escape, but she's none too happy. I love how the two are arguing in the car. It's great dialogue between the two of them, but between lines of kind of anger, High is completely civil as he's directing her exactly where to turn so that he can pick up the Huggies that he had left on the ground that he'd had to toss during the chase.
when I watched it, I mean, the first time I'm not 100% sure. I'm just laughing the whole time. But he's saying, turn over here, honey. And I'm not really thinking about the Huggies at all. I think he's trying to get back home, get the best way to get out of there, right? And then he opens the door and scoops him up. Such a great scene. But before that, she gets in the car, and the first thing she does is she decks him. She gives him one shot in the jaw. And and Nicolas Cage, his whole face just, I mean, such a great reaction. It's like he just got hit by a guy who weighs 200 pounds, but it's a little Holly Hunter
Yes, it was little Holly Hunter.
that weighs, 90 pounds maybe. Yeah. Great scene. Love it.
This movie, as you mentioned earlier, JD, it's really short. It's an hour and a half barely, and it's just packed with these kinds of things. Just never stops, never stops. So they get home. Edwina tells the brothers as she walks in no uncertain terms, they have to leave in the morning. The brothers invite a very defeated-looking High on a bank robbery with them, to which he reluctantly agrees. And he writes Ed a very sorrowful goodbye letter for her to find in the morning. Basically, he's saying she can do better without him. He just feels so bad about not being the kind of responsible parent that and husband that she should want. While he narrates this letter, with, again, it's amazing dialogue, we see that Leonard Smalls has tracked his way right to their trailer. So Smalls knows where the baby is at this point. And the next morning, he pays a visit to Nathan, Arizona, demanding $50,000 to rescue his boy. Nathan balks at this since he's already offering a $25,000 reward. And he insinuates that maybe it was Smalls who took him to begin with, and he reaches for the phone to call the cops, but Smalls disappears, stating that he's going to take the boy no matter what, and if Nathan won't pay, then the market will. Meanwhile, Gail and Evel are ready to rob the bank. They grab High, but there's a knock on the door, and it's Glenn. And he's got this neck brace on, and his nose is broken. He's got his little splint on his nose. He officially fires High, who already knew he was going to be fired, and he tells High that he knows that the baby is actually Nathan Jr. since the kidnapping is now in the paper. He puts two and two together. He demands the baby for himself and Dot, and he says he's going to be back the next day to take him, and then he leaves. However, Gail and Evel, hearing all this from inside the trailer, decide to take Nathan Jr. themselves for the $25,000 reward. They have a huge and hilarious fight as High tries to stop them from taking the baby. Basically, William Forsythe, Evel, grabs the baby and runs off into the bathroom to kind of hide and cower as John Goodman and Nick Cage just have this crazy fight. They destroy the trailer. At one point, Nick Cage jumps on John Goodman's back and he starts swinging him around and around, and you can see his feet flying in the air around and around. It's just more funny stuff.
Ninja 38 flashback there.
Yes. Movies that we made as children with just as funny fight scenes.
Such a absurdist kind of scene.
The fight ends with High being tied up and the brothers running off with the baby and the Dr. Spock book. As Ed is driving home, she sees the brothers driving away. She doesn't see the baby. He's in the back seat. And she exclaims, "Good," until she gets home and sees what happens. A now freed High is ranting about how he's going to get Nathan Jr. back, and he's going to be a better husband, and he's going to be a better father, and he's going to change, and he's going to be more responsible. He's going to be straight. He's going to be great. He's going to be good from now on. And as he's saying this, he's loading gun after gun to do something incredibly irresponsible and stupid. Gail and Evel are driving to the bank to rob it. As they're doing this, both of them totally begin falling in love with the baby, and they realize that they don't want to give him up for the reward. They want to keep him. Evel robs a store for some diapers when Nathan Jr. has an accident, and he tells the old man behind the counter to lay on the floor and count to 825, and that if he doesn't, he's going to come back to make sure that he doesn't cheat. And they drive off, but when they drive off, they leave the kid in the car seat on the roof of the car as they drive off. And they're halfway to the bank when they realize the kid is not in the car. And they start screaming, "Oh, yeah, we left the man behind." They turn around and they go back to the store. The kid's just sitting there in the middle of the road. He's happy as a clam. He's just, nothing's the matter with him. But the whole joke is, just as they drive up screaming, the old man is like, I'm not going to count anymore. And he stands up and he sees them coming and he gets right back down on the ground and starts counting again.
All the little details, right? All the little details. You see the baby in the road and you see them screaming and they're going like 80 miles an hour and they're just going to run that baby over, right? But of course they don't run him over, but they stop like maybe an inch away from hitting the baby. Hilarious.
It doesn't convey for us to just talk about it, but
It
all the screaming
doesn't.
scenes.
No. But it's
the screaming
so funny.
is so funny. Yeah. Like the genuine horror.
Yes.
These two complete criminals, irredeemable criminals, but they have genuine horror because they'd fallen in love with the baby and then did something so irresponsible. They're genuinely concerned for the baby at that point.
You start to see the duality there, right? Because these are idiotic, bumbling.
I think all of the characters, every one of them.
Who's the one character that doesn't change and has no redeeming qualities? Tex Cobb, who's a cartoon character. He can literally sniff clues. I mean, like, he is absolutely a cartoon character.
Absolutely. He, too, I read, was the type of actor who likes to kind of feel a part as opposed to read it off the page. And he and the Coen Brothers butted heads quite a bit. In fact, I believe the comment was that they won't soon use him in a movie again after this one, which is too bad because he was great in this. Ed and Hi share a tense ride as they search for the baby. Ed says that all she cares about now is getting Nathan Jr. back safe, and if they can't do that, then she does not want to go on living. And even if they do get him back safe, she does not want to continue living with him, which is just, even the serious dialogue is so well written. I mean, that's such a great line.
Gut punch.
Yeah, and you can see it. Nick Cage is just gut punched. Exactly. He just feels awful at this point.
And that's the beauty of it. You as cartoonish as the whole thing is, you still feel for the characters, and you feel it slows down enough. You go, yeah, I do care about this guy. I don't want them to get divorced. I want them to stay together.
Leonard Smalls comes to the empty, ransacked trailer and immediately ferrets out the plan to rob the bank. Like, immediately.
You mentioned it, but we glanced over, and the one thing that was borderline bullshit factor to me, it's a cartoonish movie, but within the movie, was how utterly out of control Glenn's kids were. Like,
yes.
Like you said, you mentioned it, but really they're just way super over the top, out of control. And then when Tex Cobb comes up to the trailer, and again, even with his superpowers, he figures everything out and everything, but he pauses and looks, and written there on it's just fart has been written onto the
One of the kids wrote fart on the trailer wall. Yeah, the kids were just completely insane, and the parents did absolutely nothing. I mean, they just let him run wild without saying a word. In fact, they were like, oh, isn't he cute? That kind of stuff.
Earlier in the movie, he writes that. The little kid writes it on the wall. But the Coen Brothers had the foresight to keep that scene in and then have Smalls look at the wall.
Right.
Farts written on the wall. And it's a call back to that scene. But they didn't have to do that. He could have just sniffed and gotten out of there. But we get to see the word farts again later on.
Well, and it doesn't come through talking about it, but he's such a menacing character, and he's like basically a devil. Like, he's an impossibly bad character. Yeah. And he's confronted with this absurdity. To me, was hysterical. Like, literally laugh out loud, hysterical.
I wanted to bring that up, actually. I'm glad you brought it up, Diddy.
I try to write everything, but I don't write everything. So please catch the stuff I miss. Farts. At the exact same time, Gail and Evil, with the baby in hand, perpetrate their stick up. They don't want to leave the baby in the car because, as Evil says, what if we get shot and then they don't find the baby for hours? So they bring him in. However, the heist goes very smoothly, except that unbeknownst to the brothers, the teller puts a dye pack in with the money. As they're driving away once again, they realize they forgot the baby again. And as they're going to do a really fast U-turn, That's when the dye pack explodes, covering the insides of the car and them with blue paint. Again, they start screaming out loud. John Goodman is trying. Just thinking about it is funny. John Goodman is trying to smear the window so that he can see as they're going 80 miles an hour down the road, trying to do a U-turn. And the car stops right as Ed and High's car drive up. Ed and High jump out of their car, open the doors, look around. They don't see the baby. Ed grabs the Dr. Spock book, and the two of them walk off, leaving Gail and Evel, who jump out of the car and are like, wait, no, could take us with you. We want to help. We want to save the baby. But they ignore them. They jump back in their car and continue onward. So the police are speeding to the bank because they found out there was a robbery. High and Ed are speeding to the bank because that's where the baby is. And so is Leonard Smalls speeding to the bank because he knows the baby is there. High and Ed and Leonard Smalls arrive right at the same time. But it's the hellish biker who gets the jump on them. And without even stopping, he rides right by, grabs the car seat, and sets it right on the front of his bike and continues on. I love Ed's line as they're watching him. They're both driving towards the baby, and they see this biker in the distance. And Ed goes, "What is he?" And High says, "You see him too." Just great lines. After he puts the baby on the bike, he pulls out a shotgun, Smalls, and he blows out High's windshield with the shotgun. And he doesn't ride off after that. High had to slam on the brakes after his windshield goes out, so Smalls could have just driven off, but no, he turns around, he comes back, he blows out the back windshield, and as he drives by, he throws a grenade in the car. And again, just great filming. They do it from the different angles. You see from the very top of the car, the doors open, both of them run out in separate directions. You get a front view of each of them running towards the camera as they're going away from the vehicle that explodes. Just inspired camera work, tremendous angles. Smalls comes back again, almost running over High, who was lying in the road. High just is able to roll out of the way, and he grabs the footrest of the bike and allows himself to be dragged along. Smalls steps on High's hand until he lets go, and then swerves around to attack again. He stops and he revs his engine. But Ed comes out of nowhere and stomps toward him, demanding the baby. Smalls pulls out these two little knives that he's going to kill her with. But at the last second, High has drawn his gun, and he shoots one of the hands holding the knife and knocks it out. And I thought it was really cool that when he shoots, the bullet hits his hand and causes a flame on his hand. It doesn't actually hurt him, but it causes this flame that he kind of shakes to put out.
Again, Holly Hunter, just absolutely perfect. Like, give me that baby. Here's a guy who's thrown a hand grenade at her, and she's not intimidated at all. She's marching towards him. Give me that baby.
Well, with that accent, come on. I'd give her the baby. Here you go. Here you go, Holly Hunter.
Smalls takes the other knife that was in his hand. Instead of throwing it at Holly Hunter, he throws it at Nick Cage, knocking the gun out of his hand. And when he returns his attention to Holly Hunter, she has already taken the baby off of the bike and run into the bank. As she's just about to run out of the back of the bank, Smalls crashes through the bank door on his bike and chases her.
Amazing dialogue, because when she comes into the bank, everybody else is in there. Hey, ma'am, you need to lay down. Just lay down. Everything will be fine. Yeah,
I didn't mention that when Gail and Evel were robbing the bank, they made everybody lay down on the ground. One of the funny lines was John Goodman comes in there and says, "All right, everybody freeze and get down on the ground." And nobody moves. And the old guy is like, "Well, you want me to freeze? I can't very well lay down on the ground. And if you want me to lay down on the ground, well, then I'll be in motion."
And, when they went back in, and Coen Brothers didn't forget about those guys that were supposed to be laying on the ground still.
Yeah, that's always interesting that you're following your protagonists, whatever, but there's also other people in the world, and they're all doing whatever they're doing. And you have to remember all those things if you're writing a script. This, obviously, was done for comedic effect, so that was funny. Meanwhile, Holly Hunter has run out the back of the bank. Smalls is chasing her on his motorcycle. She gets onto this kind of boardwalk, back sidewalk behind a house, And as she's coming out from behind it, Leonard Smalls is just about to catch up, and hiding there is High, and he's got a big 2x4, and he smacks Smalls right off of his bike. Smalls gets up, and then he beats the ever-loving crap out of High. At one point, he punches him in the face, and High spits a tooth at him. And eventually, he gets High in a bear hug and begins crushing him to death until High discovers that Smalls has this little Roadrunner tattoo on his chest, and they both look at it at the same time. I can't remember, but I want to say, didn't High have the same tattoo? You see it at the beginning, the little Roadrunner?
Actually, Woody Woodpecker.
Oh, it's Woody Woodpecker. It wasn't the Roadrunner. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's that's a common mistake. I think I've seen people talk about this before. You see the Woody Woodpecker on his chest, and there's a whole thing for me. I mean, I'm starting a fan. I mean, I don't know if there's a fan theory of this, but remember he talks about his father. He didn't know his father, and he didn't know why he was the way he was. Maybe that's his father.
Oh,
Wow.
Maybe he's out of hell, right? And he's had trouble with the law his whole life, right? So, and he kept saying, "I don't know why I'm the way I am," right? And here he is, a guy who's comes out of his nightmares, and he's got the same tattoo on his chest.
Wow.
I don't know if the Coen Brothers what they meant to do with that, but it really does make me think one of two things: either it's his creation out of he brought him out of hell, right? Or maybe that if you're talking reality, maybe that is his dad. I'm not sure. Could be.
Maybe.
that's so clever, Rob. I never thought about it. I think you might be right. I took it to be that the whole character is representative of High's bad side.
Huh.
I don't want to
Okay.
jump ahead, but as we soon find out, he excises himself, and we have some character progression. Yeah.
And that would be a Coen's things to do, right? They do incorporate these things into their stories.
I got the impression that Smalls was kind of embarrassed that somebody saw his little Woody Woodpecker tattoo, and he stops crushing High, and instead he punches him. So you talked about the other guy flying 15 feet. Dude flies 20 feet and lands on the ground.
Definitely
But while
in the moment of that scene, there's an embarrassment factor.
Yeah.
Like, again, he's such an over the top, evil, tough guy. And then I looked at the tattoo and while he's being killed, even looks at him like judgmentally, like
When High lands on the ground, he realizes, and the bounty hunter also realizes at the same time, that High had grabbed a couple of the pins out of the hand grenades that are hanging on Smalls's vest, on his jacket. And suddenly he realizes, High feels actually bad about it. He actually apologizes. He's like, "I'm sorry." And so now Smalls doesn't care about High anymore. He needs to get these grenades off of his vest, and he's trying, but he's got guns strapped to his hands. He's got all sorts of stuff on. He can't get it off, and he explodes, and nothing is left of Smalls except for his boots and a pair of little baby boots that he had hung on the back of his belt. You see the little baby boots land on the ground, and that is the end of Leonard Smalls.
And
so
the
the
little
baby boots make me wonder if Rob isn't right, that those are High's
They
shoes.
sure could be, yeah.
that's what I've done
And
too, right?
again, for the 100th time, the dialogue where High literally apologizes when he realizes
Yes.
that he's pulled the pins. I'm sorry. Just awesome.
I love Small's reaction. He's like completely stunned. You see the cigar fall out of his mouth and spit, and he's looking down.
Yeah.
It's just funny. It's just great. It was just written so well.
If it weren't for the baby stealing scene, I'd give this a perfect 10. Like, it's
Agree.
so good.
That one scene was a
So
little.
good.
So they're successful. High and Ed get the baby back, and later on, the two of them return to the Arizona house to put Nathan Jr. back in his crib. Now everybody's gone because they were worried about kidnapping and stuff. The mother took the rest of the sons, and she left. The only person in the house now is the father, and he walks in just as they're putting the baby back, along with the mostly ruined Dr. Spock book. Nathan Sr. has a revolver in his hand, and at first he thinks that they're with Smalls, but he eventually realizes that they took the baby. He realizes this, they explain, because they can't have children of their own. And Nathan comes to feel sorry for them. But he feels that they must be good people because in the end, they did bring his son back. And when High admits that he and Ed are probably going to be getting a divorce, since, in his words, they're both selfish and unrealistic and thus not very good for each other, Nathan lets them go, but with one slight admonition. He says before they do another foolish thing like busting up, they should sleep on it, at least one night. And they do. And during that one night, High has another dream. And High dreams of the future. And that future consists of Gale and Evel using the tunnel that they dug to get out of prison. They use it to go back into prison. And that a few years later, Nathan Jr. gets a football as a Christmas present from a kindly couple that preferred to remain anonymous. And that Glenn, still trying to get the police to believe that High and Ed kidnapped the Arizona boy, throws in one too many Polish jokes when he's talking to the cop without realizing that the cop is Polish. And that many, many years later, Nathan Jr. becomes a star football player, and he and Ed are proud. And they wonder if maybe they made the boy's life better in some small way. And then he dreams way, way, way into the future. And he dreams about High and Ed as an old couple, still together, being visited by their children and their many, many grandchildren for Thanksgiving. And High says that this dream seemed so real. It seemed like them. It seemed like their home. If not Arizona, then a land not too far away, where all parents are strong and wise and capable, and all children are happy and beloved. I don't know, says High. Maybe it was Utah. And that is how the movie ends. So what did you guys think of Raising Arizona?
That's awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. I love that maybe it's Utah.
The dialogue all the way through from the first line to literally the last line. It's perfect. Perfect dialogue.
Yeah, the dream sequence is definitely, it wraps it up nicely and it gives you a little bit of the feels.
Totally. I thought it was very powerful.
Yeah.
Even though it was a little bit emotional in the end, it does follow what the mood of the whole movie with Ed and Hyde trying to have a family. And that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
It does come full circle. And you hope that that is the truth. That's what becomes of them, but it is a dream.
His other dream came true with the bounty hunter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which you, JD, I like your interpretation of it. Could be him because, it's kind of like a Fight Club moment. Although he is kind of real. I mean, to them, he's real because he's affecting what's happening around them, right?
Yeah. He's not imaginary for sure.
He's not imaginary, but I like that idea too. That because he does dream of it, not that he becomes reformed afterwards, but you're right. He does come back around to that's not who I want to be.
I think he is reformed at the end. Now I want to analyze all the dream stuff, but I think the baby boots really suggest that it's his dad, and then maybe it's both, right? It represents both things.
I think so too, because a lot of people don't want to follow in their father's footsteps or whatever that might be, right? And
Right.
for good or bad, whatever, right? Because that's a common theme in life, real life, and the baby, and then they made a point of putting the little shoes that were dipped in whatever copper.
Bronze. They used to bronze the shoes.
Right. My sister had hers done. They didn't do mine. That was the second one, so
Yeah.
novelty wore off. But my sister had hers, so I immediately recognized it. What do you think, JD? What do you think about the ending?
Oh, it was great. Even just talking about it made me love it even more. The Coen Brothers, all their stuff, but this is damn nearly a perfect movie.
It's crazy because if you watch their movies, they're so diverse.
They are.
Okay, their writing is consistent, very good, but the subject matters are very diverse, right? Their style is, you can recognize their style when you're watching.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, what did you think about the end and how it wrapped up?
I love the end. Like I said, I thought it was really powerful. Like you said, it gives you the feels. I don't remember if I felt that way seeing it as a kid, but in seeing it a couple times recently, really felt emotional at the end that you're so happy that they have this wonderful family. And something that the Coen brothers do is that they create a lot of threads in their stories, different weird, quirky things, and they tie them up so perfectly in just about every movie that's coming to me at the moment. Everything ties up perfectly. I know a lot of people don't like that kind of stuff. I love that kind of writing, those kinds of endings. And it was silly at parts. It was cartoonish, like you said. It's sort of like a Looney Tunes. It was so funny and so good. And it wasn't long enough to let you wander at all. So it's
Yeah,
like perfect, like JD, like you were saying, it's like almost a perfect movie. There were some things like we talked about that baby scene at the beginning, and there wasn't much of a story.
yeah,
They
it's
steal the
those
baby and they return the baby.
right.
It's actually a really character driven story. The two of them
Yeah,
as exactly what you're saying, JD. They both evolve as characters to hopefully. I like to believe, I personally like to believe that they come to the end that's in the dream, and that's how they bettered themselves and eventually straightened out, both of them, and still loved each other. And I think through the whole thing, even despite the fact that as things were happening, you could see their marriage falling apart, but they did love each other and they stayed together. And I don't know, it was just really nice. This was definitely a comedy that also was powerful and emotional.
Right. And there's a lot of you
and
can read between the lines there, like we just did. Because if you just watch the movie and turn your brain off, it's just a funny,
Totally.
zany movie, but there's a lot going on in there too. It's the Coen brothers, and even though it's their second movie, I think they were still putting in that Coen brothers soul into the movie.
Absolutely. I think this was a huge leap from Blood Simple, which I didn't actually really care for. That's probably my least favorite of their movies.
I have to go back and rewatch it. I know I have seen it, but I don't remember it at all. I don't remember what it's even about.
It
Okay.
was also a crime story, only it was a more serious crime story.
Yeah. Also, just a little funny touch was John Goodman going back to prison and not walking in the front door and turning himself in, but breaking back in the prison. Like
Right.
going back in,
Go back to the womb.
go back to the womb, and we just weren't ready to
Not
be on
ready.
the outside. And that totally fit their character. As absurd as that is, it was completely in character. Like they did not really care, right? They talked about getting caught again. They talked about being killed in a shootout with just like, oh well, like that's part of the game. That's completely might be what happens, and we're still gonna go this route.
A little bit,
Fantastic.
a little bit of trivia. So Holly Hunter, she was in the movie called Always. Did you guys see that
Sure,
with
Steven
Of
Spielberg.
course,
with
of
John
course.
Goodman?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
John
John
Goodman,
Goodman
yes, yes.
and they were together in that movie with
Oh yeah.
oh gosh, who was the lead?
It was Richard Dreyfuss,
Richard
Richard
Dreyfuss.
Dreyfuss. Yeah.
which
Absolutely.
was Steven Spielberg's guy, just
Yeah,
like the Coen brothers. Coen brothers have a few guys.
Hmm.
Dreyfuss was definitely one of Steven Spielberg's guys.
Right.
for sure.
That's
But
at least three
Goodman,
movies I can think of that he was in. Close Encounters, Jaws, and Always, and I can't think of any others.
Those were three of the big ones.
Yep.
yeah, he did Close Encounters and Jaws. Like, god dang.
Yep.
Both roles, but Close Encounters, absolutely iconic performance there for Richard Dreyfuss. Can't wait to us to do more
I,
Coen Brothers. It's an excuse now to go back and watch some that I haven't seen in a while, like Blood Simple and Barton Fink. And we discussed briefly before that Miller's Crossing, because
I
of a
love
couple
that
of the
movie.
scenes, I swore I would never watch it again because it was so
Really?
powerful. Yeah, the John
Oh,
Turturro.
the John Turturro.
I was
Sure.
like, Jesus, what
Yeah,
was
to
that
me,
movie?
that is one of the almost perfect movies. I mean, there's not much, everything about that movie. And we should not necessarily be talking about that during Raising Arizona, but one of the main differences between the two stories is that Miller's Crossing is a much more complex and clever plot, whereas Raising Arizona is more of a comedy. I can't say, that's why I took points off. I don't think I took points off of Raising Arizona. I think I added points to Miller's Crossing because it just had more. But otherwise, very similar, great dialogue, great characters, great plot, and then again, just like Raising Arizona, it ties up so perfectly at the end.
And it's heavily Coen-esque, in the
Yeah.
stylized world, because the characters, the way they talk, even they have it here in Raising Arizona, the way they talk. Probably not. They would never use the language that they use to describe what they're going through, but they use their language, the Coen Brothers language, with the accents and the local, dialect. And then same thing with Miller's Crossing, because it's sort of like 20s. I don't know what style that is, almost mid-Atlantic,
It's
very
like Chicago Prohibition.
Chicago,
Yeah,
there we
yeah.
go, Prohibition time, speak, but even more amped up. I felt like it was a little, it was
Oh,
really,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's what they do. They take it and it's, yeah, it's funny because the dialogue you wouldn't think is natural. It's not, people don't really speak like that, and yet it just works so well in all their movies. And Raising Arizona is certainly one of them.
I don't know if they're working on anything else. I'd like to see one more before they
They
retire.
kind of broke up.
Yeah, yeah.
The Ethan Coen is making his own movies, and I saw the first one, that Driveway Dolls. I couldn't stand it. I thought it was awful. In fact, I thought it was so bad that I didn't even bother to watch the sequel. And Joel Coen did the Denzel Washington Shakespeare movie. I think it was The Tragedy of Macbeth. The fact that I can't remember makes me look really bad, but there we go.
It's okay. We'll do a fact check afterwards.
I've heard really bad things about that from a couple people who watched it, but it's still on my list and I will get to watch it. But it would be cool, yes, if they got back together at one point and did something together again. So that will end our scene-by-scene discussion of Raising Arizona. Do you guys have anything you would like to add?
Two
Nope.
thumbs
Quick
way,
movie.
way up.
Way up, yes. Definite recommend. All right, then. For Rob and JD, I am Heath, signing off from the 6th Row Center. Now, we got to run because the next movie we want to see is starting right this minute.